Hello, everyone, and welcome to Visual Basic and its history. Okay, before we begin and before we dive into Visual Basic and Visual Studio and actually start writing programs, I think it's important to understand what Visual Basic is, its history, and a little bit on why we teach it. We talked about that a little bit in previous videos, but I think it's good to talk about it again now just to make sure everybody has a clear understanding of why we do this and how these classes in which we teach Visual Basic is going to help you in the rest of the curriculum in CPDM. Personal computers started to become an item that was used personally and specifically in business in the late 80s. So PCs haven't been out forever. They literally started about, I guess, 40 some years ago now, where they started becoming more of a mainstay in business. With that, to run these computers, Bill Gates did his magical thing and actually wrote Windows, which was introduced in 1985. Again, businesses really didn't start using these types of things on an everyday basis until really early 90s, late 80s. Prior to that, everything was a mainframe computer, kind of those dummy terminals and so on that you may have seen here and there on TV. But when we got into the PCs, life sort of changed for the business world. Now we actually had a machine on our desk that was actually smart and actually could run, applications like we needed. Windows became popular. Obviously, what made these machines popular is Windows in regards to that it had that graphical user interface. And basically, it was, easy to use because you had, icons and so and such, I should say, where you can actually click on them and do your work accordingly in that way. Okay? So businesses and programmers specifically wanted to capture that ease in their own applications. So when we're writing applications for businesses, they said, well, Windows works so well and it is pretty easy to use. Is there a way that we can incorporate that into our own applications, meaning the toolbar and the menu bar and some of the graphics that we see today? So that was really the need for the advent of these visual languages, I should say. So basically, the first language that came out that was visual, really Microsoft's language, was Visual Basic that was introduced in 1991, and second was Visual C++ that was introduced in 1993. These languages allowed software developers to develop software that interacted with the Windows GUI, similar to many applications in Windows. So what do I mean by this GUI, graphical user interface? Basically allowing programmers to utilize some of the things that people now recognize as text boxes, buttons, radio buttons, checkboxes, etc., and doing so relatively easily. At first, Visual Basic was an interpretive language that ran very slow, wasn't really taken too seriously, but once again, it had a need, and I remember writing programs way back when in Visual Basic back in the early 90s. It was a new thing. It was very new to all programmers and how this actually worked. Because it was slow and because it really wasn't taken into a lot of consideration as a mainstay type of language, VB.NET was introduced, and so VB.NET took it to a whole nother level. And that level was that Visual Basic became a true object-oriented programming language, and it was considered just as robust as C++. Prior to this, C++ always had the upper hand on Visual Basic because it was an object-oriented programming language. A lot of you probably don't know what that means yet, but you will over the set of the next several courses. But Visual Basic was not that, but it is now in VB.NET. And so because of how they kind of restructured it all, I can get into a lot more technical details, but because of how they restructured VB and incorporated it into what is now called the .NET framework, basically it became just as robust as C++ and thus became more popular. Visual Basic is based upon basically the basic language. It's the basic language that was actually developed in 1964. This language on top of the whole visual piece of it, the GUI, is what makes up Visual Basic. Visual C++ is the same thing. C++ on top of the GUI makes it a visual language. Basic is not overly complex language. It is very English-like, and it's pretty easy to learn all in all. It was actually developed for non-computer science type people back in '64. But like anything, it evolved and became a language taught in many colleges and universities uh, as the very first language. Why do we teach it? Well, today VB.NET is used in industry, but not extensively, but it's still out there. For professional developers, it's not a very popular language, as you'll find. It's a bit bulky, a little clumsy, and languages like C Sharp, Java, C, C++, and others are more popular among professional developers. I would agree with that. And I would say the majority of our employers that hire our graduates, don't use Visual Basic. Some do. It is out there. There's no doubt about it. But here at Cincinnati State, after much research, we have discovered our students are able to learn Java and C Sharp and C much easier after taking VB.NET. So please understand, we don't teach VB.NET as a means of teaching a language you would use in industry, though you might, but as a means to teach you how to program. You will find we stay away from all the little gadgetry, I would say, that's in a lot of VB.NET. And we get really to the core of what programming is all about. And so in programming 1 and programming 2, we're going to utilize this language because we like the English like of it. We like the use of Visual Studio and how it works with Visual Basic and how it easily allows you to write a program. And we like the fact that we know once you learn how to do this, that we can teach you just about any language by drawing comparisons back to it. So we feel it's easy to use up front and then very easy to teach you other languages as we move forward. That's why we teach VB.NET here at Cincinnati State. By learning this language, we set the foundation for you to pick up other languages more quickly, pretty much repeating what I just said. You'll be able to easily relate to many things in future classes based on what you learned in both Programming 1 and Programming 2. And as the program chair, I can contest that that's actually true. We always refer back to those classes. And students go, oh, yeah, okay, I understand now. And so it's amazing how it sort of works. All right? So with that, that's just a little bit of the history, not a very long video. So what we need to do now is dive in and get started on your career.